Hello to all of my viewers tuning in. This is your host, I am Lovely Ann, and we are back on episode 3 of the Pulsating Thoughts podcast, where today's segment will be on addiction and recovery. So today I have my special guest with me, Miss Keisha Hart. Welcome, Keisha. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, Lori.
I am good. I'm good. Good. So today's episode, this series will be 3 parts to it. Today, this segment is going to be on addiction and recovery, and the topic is going to be of drugs. So I want to start, Keisha, with my very first fond memory, and then we'll get into the dialogue. So me and you were attending the same church at a period of time down in Miami. And I remember being over the young adult ministry, and we did a segment, we did a piece where one of our activities where we were going to feed the homeless.
Mhm.
And I believe there was an announcement made during service, and you came up to me after church and said that you wanted to participate. And I was like, cool, the more the merrier. So the day of the event, I do recall it being a Saturday. We had a couple of members of the young adult ministry that was present. And for those who don't know the Miami area, we went into the Overtown area. So if you don't know, before this whole gentrification piece, Overtown is one of the very historic areas of Miami. But on the same token, it's a lot of poverty. It's poverty stricken. I don't think it's that way now with gentrification, but it was poverty. It was, and we always used to go churches, not just this church, my other church prior. We will go over into the Overtown area and we will feed the homeless. And it was a success. We went, we gave out care packages, we gave out food for those who wanted prayer. We offered prayer for them, and it went well. I mean, it went well. It was a couple of us. I remember being Elder Cohen, the youth and young adult pastor, and it was a couple of members of the young adult ministry that was present. And I recall us getting back into the car, and we got into a brief conversation. And I remember you saying, and this is paraphrasing, you had said that today was very rewarding for you because you seen a lot of people who you used to get high with. And in my head, I was like, did she just say what I think she said? Did she just say what I think she said? And then you started talking, and you just started disclosing some things. And I do recall you sharing some information, and then you pulled out this photo, and you said to me that I always keep this photo with me as a reminder of where I've come from. Okay. So I want to show the audience before we get started that photo that you showed to me that is a reminder of your past. Okay. Of who Keisha used to be. And I want to put that out there because sometimes people like to label us of
Exactly.
where we not where we are today.
Mhm.
So I just want to show you guys just a brief photo of who Keisha used to be, but God. So let me just show that. Hold on a second. So that is who Keisha used to be. So I'm going to remove it. And then, we're just going to get started. I think that day was so profound to me because we all know of someone who is either still struggling in their addiction, who has either overcome their addiction, or who have succumbed to their addiction. And we sit next to people in church all the time, and we don't realize what people are going through. Sometimes we don't even have conversations with people. But I just thought that day was like, wow, man, like we barely said, we barely talked in church, but it was like, wow, to see this girl here, to see what she's overcome. And I could just only imagine, what you had to go through to get to where you are. But it is a beautiful sight to see a sister overcome something that most people never, ever, ever get through. And as a former church member, I just want to publicly say that I'm proud of you, girl. Keep striving. And this episode is going to hit hard for so many people because we have loved ones, whether it be a mother, whether it be a father, a sister, cousins, somebody, we know somebody who has struggled with drugs. And I'm just so happy for you to be here to tell your story, and not be ashamed of your story, because many people are ashamed of what they've been through. Just simple stuff not even on your caliber, but just I'm just so happy that you're here.
Thank you.
So let's get started. So just let the viewers know before we get started, what was your drug of choice?
Drug of choice was more. I like to say that because, initially it started out like fun, right? It was the alcohol and the clubbing. And eventually it ended up being me fully blown addicted to crack cocaine.
Wow. Wow. So how, I know you just briefly touched on it, but it started recreational, but how did you get introduced to the drug aspect of it?
Well, it was, so it's progressive, right? It started out, like I said, it was fun hanging out at the clubs. I'm drinking, was introduced to powder cocaine by a friend of mine at first, an associate coworker, and we were out, and it wasn't any major effect. I didn't lose anything. Was able to wake up, still go to work. Like it continued to be a normal life, right?
Gotcha.
However, in my adventures, I will call it, of clubbing and partying and meeting people, I ran into this guy, and I will never forget. Looking back, I should have ran then immediately, but he put me in the bathroom, and we were, doing coke. And when he put me in the bathroom, he was like, "Hey, you ever tried this?" And he showed me this little pebble of, white rock, and I'm like, "No, never seen it." And at this point, I'm the innocent girl, really don't know too much. I'm just having fun, living life. It's early. And he set everything up for me, walked out of the bathroom and closed the door behind him.
Whoa.
Exactly. Let's talk about red flags, right?
Whoa.
I never paid any attention to none of it, right? Hindsight is 2020. Looking back, I can see it clearly today. Like, yeah, I should have gotten a hint that this may be something that was wrong. But I did it. Didn't really have any effect. Okay, cool, no problem. He looked at me really weird, like he didn't understand it.
Wow.
And I just tried it again, same night, right? A couple of minutes later, and again, it wasn't any effect on me. And that opened the door, right? That was the introduction. Where in being that it didn't have any major effect, right? I didn't turn into Pookie or anything like that immediately,
Right.
So I didn't see an issue with it. So later on, when I went to look for the powder cocaine and they didn't have it, and someone told me, they only had hard, is what they referred to as crack. I was like, sure, okay, no problem. But that time, at that point, when I did it, it had a completely different effect on me, and I was not able to grab back hold of me after that.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So would you say that was technically your first high, being that anything else, the powder cocaine, you were allowed to be functional. So would you consider that your first official high, so to speak, or no?
And I wouldn't say my first high. I think my first interaction with true addiction.
Got you. Okay.
I'll put it that way, right? Because of course the cocaine had me high. There was different reactions that I had where, I'd be speedy and really up and really ready to party and really ready to go. And like everything was like now. Versus still being able to go to work. Because mind you, even when I was on powder cocaine, I would go to work, but I would still leave work in order to go and call.
Oh, wow.
I would leave work in order to go and get some more. So it was like I was never without.
Got you.
Mm-hmm.
Got you. So take us into, so how long after that did things started to spiral out of control?
So it wasn't immediate. right? Let me take a step back and say, right, I was that individual that never really felt like I fit, right?
Okay.
So finding a substance and something to take me outside of myself helped me feel like I fit, right? It gave
Gotcha.
me a sense of false belonging, right? And I have to insert that word false in there because nobody belongs in active addiction. Okay. Um, and at that time when I tried it again, it was the same thing of me trying to get away from myself, right? There was some things going on. My mom had gotten sick. I was in a relationship. We had relocated. Like I was staying in a motel room on Biscayne
Mm,
Boulevard, cooking off of a eye burner. So there was a lot of things that was weighing down on me, and that was my way of being able to cope with things.
gotcha.
So while it was not an immediate decline, it definitely was progressive, right? I noticed the difference of being able to need more. I was no longer able to go to work. I no longer wanted to be around my families and friends. Like I started excluding myself or removing myself, probably a lot of it out of guilt and shame of what I was beginning to do and get myself involved into. So I would say overall, it probably took a good 6 months before I was completely declined. 6 to 8 months, I would say.
When did your family started to notice the change in you and able to connect the dots? Like, okay, we thinking this is something more than what, an average person may be dealing with.
Because I ran away from my family, I can't even really say when.
Gotcha.
Right? My mom was literally 5 blocks away from where I used to get high at. The house I grew up in, lived in. She lived with my little brother. My sister had started her life with her family, her husband, and things of that nature. I can remember one moment that sticks out in my mind because I've always tried to hold it together, right? In the beginning, I was that individual that I didn't have to do what everybody else did. I could go home to my mama. I was better than in my mind. The addiction showed me really quick how little it thought of me being better than or having a home to go back to or any of that, so to speak. So it was the holidays, and it's kind of within the same season. I didn't want to go home to the family, right? Because I knew they were going to know, right? I went
Right.
always being this little thick girl, little chunky child, to this little thin thing, right? I can remember walking around at probably a size 1, size 2, and mind you, and you couldn't tell me I wasn't it.
Right. Right.
Talking again, false reality, the things that we tell ourselves in order to be able to get over. But as a result, like I can remember going to a church and I picked up one of those boxes that they give with the turkeys and the little fixings and stuff. And I fixed a whole meal for Thanksgiving and at a friend's house. And somebody came and knocked on the door. And when they knocked on the door, they were like, hey, and the food sat there, fully cooked meal sat there because I chose to get high. So, I'm giving it another run at Christmas now. I'm going back around. This time I'm going to go around family. Right. And got everything. Got a wig, nice outfit, put myself together. Right. I actually still have a picture of that day. I can remember my brother, my sister. And at that time, I'm thinking I'm okay. My family was one, probably like a lot of other families. We don't talk about the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room. Nobody actually said what they may have been thinking or what they may have known. It was just, I think, the joy that I was actually around.
Yeah.
However, there was my cousin who stopped and she looked at me and it was almost, and she couldn't help it. Tears started to flow. And I can remember getting angry and I'm like, what's wrong with her? Like, there's nothing wrong with me. Nobody else is saying anything. Like, how dare you? And again, the audacity. So I can't say that anyone ever said anything specifically. It was shortly after that I noticed like my sister offered me treatment. She offered me, to get help and things like that. But I was too far gone at that point.
Take us into the life and the day of an addict.
Ooh, a life and day. There is no life. There's an existence,
Mm,
right? There's definitely a difference. Um, some may understand, some may get it, some may not.
right.
But the life of an addict is usually an existence, right? We're just kind of using to live and living to use, right? Nothing else mattered but the want need to get another one, another high, right? You heard me start off by saying that I was addicted to more because
Right.
I wanted more of whatever. And usually the more of whatever it was in order for me not to feel, for me not to have to be in touch with reality of where my life had taken me to, right? I was a smart girl. I grew up until the age of 12 in a two-parent home. You know, my mom raised me, went to church, like all of the stuff, right? There was nothing that I could say that I needed, wanted, or neglected. However, the more just became alcohol. You know, I can remember one time snorting heroin. And it's just the day in, day out, you know, of wondering when I was going to get out of that cycle, knowing that I didn't want to be there anymore, but not knowing how to get out,
Out.
you know. And I'm keeping myself surrounded by people who's doing the same thing as me, who may be a little bit worse off than me, because it's making me feel better about who I am and what I'm doing, you know, even though I was never quite okay with any of it, you know. So with me going and doing, and it was if and when I slept, Lori,
Wow.
if and when. You know, a lot of people say, oh, well, we used to call it getting a wake up. No, I didn't need a wake up, baby. I ain't never been to sleep. My
Wow.
days ran into nights and my nights ran into days. Like sometimes it was a gift to be arrested because, you know, that was an ability for me to rest and to rest safely, you know, because I got to a point where I was sleeping in a house that had no doors, no screens on the windows, you know. There was absolutely um individuals running in and out of there so often, and we were selling everything out of that house but a Bible, you know, including ourselves. Like, let me
Right.
just continue to be transparent about it. You know, this is the reality of it. I dressed up some of those things as saying that they were dates rather than tricks. I didn't want to call them exactly what they were, you know what I mean? Because again, I knew better and I knew I should have been doing better. So as a result, like, I wasn't able to cope with a lot of the stuff that I used to be doing. I
Wow.
wasn't able to do it. So, you know, gratefully, I never got to a point where I was out there panhandling, but I wasn't far from it. That's one of those things that we call a not yet. You know, that's one of my not yets, because there were people that did, and I would be waiting in a dope hole or waiting at the trap house for somebody to come around with an extra dollar or an extra hit, or me doing whatever I needed to do in order to get another one, just for me not to have to face some of the things and the degradation that I have that my life had gotten to.
Wow. Girl, you answered pretty much my next question I have for you was some of the things that you did to get it. And I know there's a lot of people that um will take from their family.
Mm-hmm.
The kids are collateral damage. My niece, for an example, she lost her mom. Her mom was a heroin addict. And um, she said to me one day, she said, Auntie, I can't tell you some of the things I did
Mm.
to support my mom's addiction, because at the time she was young. And so you have a child that uh, there was speculation of her even selling her body to help her mom addiction, as well as feed her little sisters that were looking up to her. So wow. So the collateral damage, let's talk about collateral damage. Did you have any children?
Um, I did. I did. I have three kids, and let me say it the way that I normally say it. I Sorry, still a sore spot, right?
It's okay. That's all right. Take your time.
Birth to 3, and I'm only a mother to 1.
Wow. Wow.
And that's because of my addiction. So yeah.
Wow. So they don't at this juncture, although
I'm sorry. Are we able to pause? Can we
Go ahead. I understand the fur babies. I'm a fur mom, so I understand it. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
For the fur babies, I mean the fur moms, fur parents, y'all understand this moment. When the kids start acting up, we got to take a little break. And it's a 10-week-old baby.
I'm sorry. Everybody say hello to Chip. This is my fur baby who does not want to be without me. He is being very calm right now, but he needs to go back in the crate. But he doesn't want to.
It's okay. It's okay. So I was saying, so although, sometimes how many, before I go into the next question, how many years have you been clean so far?
11 years now.
11 years. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you, God. But God, that's one of those things, but God, but God moment.
Exactly.
So now 11 years has passed. Mom has totally did a 360. So the kid, you're older. Well, I can't say whether they're older or younger, but those 2 kids that we're referencing, the relationship is still not mendable, or is it something that they just don't want to do?
So I can't really say, right? And this is one of those, let me do the work, let me do the footwork and let God do the rest.
Got you.
It's really where I'm at with it, right? Because as I started by saying, like, I had birth to 3. I'm only a mother to 1. Gratefully, my oldest 2 were not put into foster care. They were placed with family, their father's side of the family. Mm-hmm. So as a result, they do know me as their mother, even though I have not been a part of their lives, right? They are happy. They are healthy. They are smart. They are traveling. Like, they have full lives, drama club, drummer. This is a girl, middle is a boy. Like, they follow them. I keep up with them, so they know, I know what's going on with them. And as a result, like, when I got clean, I could have petitioned to the court to order for them to, me to be a part of their lives, right? But there's some harm we cause as addicts. Right. And the reality of it is, how selfish would that have been of me to uproot their lives now that I'm clean? Now that I'm clean, all of a sudden I want to uproot their lives and decide that hey, now I want to be a mom, so give me my children back. Like, yeah, we don't get to do that. We don't get to do that. So, well, and I won't say we. Let me speak for myself. I didn't choose to do that. Right.
Understandable.
In time, they will have questions. They will come to me. I will be able to answer those questions, and not only answer those questions, but I will be a mother that they will be proud to call a mother today.
Gotcha. I love it. The day you decided to get clean, mm-hmm. let's talk about that. The day that you said enough was enough. Mm-hmm. Take us through that day.
So it wasn't a day, it was a process.
Okay.
Right. Okay. I will say that. It really started by me being tired of me, right? I was tired of jumping in and out of cars. I was tired of sleeping from pillar to post. I was tired of not having a relationship with my family. Like, I was embarrassed by the things that I have done. Walking away from my children, not being a mother, like going from being really smart in high school, at getting college acceptance letters to a crackhead. Like, and when I eventually looked at me, right? And when I say look at me, it's not even literal sense, because I could not have looked at myself in the mirror for many years, right? I didn't want to. I didn't want to look at the woman or that girl that was looking back at me.
Right.
I ended up pregnant with my baby boy.
Oh.
And at that point I was just tired, right? And that day, right, was my bottom when I went into labor with him. I was using, right? One of the guys had ran out of dope, and I went back to this house in the neighborhood where I would frequently go to kind of shower and get myself together and rest, and started having labor pains. But it was very, very different. So much so that I thought I may have been miscarrying my baby.
How many weeks were you at the time?
About 28 to 32.
Okay, so you were still fairly...
Yeah, honestly, I really have no idea, because I hadn't had any prenatal care whatsoever. Oh. Yeah. So, okay. When it got down to that point, I think that was the one time that I realized how alone I truly was, right? No one would come, tell them the truth. No one would, yep, let me get you to the hospital to have your baby or anything like that. Like, I had to make a phone call and promise that, hey, let's go cop. Let's go get one, in order for somebody to show up. And I tricked that individual. They picked me up, and I held it together just long enough to say that, hey, I need to go to the Jackson North. And then when they realized what was going on, like, mind you, I was still high. There's no other way to put it, right? I was still high. And that day I just knew there was something shift. I knew when I heard his heartbeat for the first time, there was a shift that happened. And I knew that this was it. I knew that it was over, right? I would love to say that immediately I walked down and my whole world changed, but no, that's not the life of addiction. Addiction doesn't want you to live. Addiction wants you to continue to exist. Addiction wants you to possibly die out there. It wants you miserable. It wants you to beat yourself up on a constant basis. So while I did get out of the hospital and made the effort, I think I got high one more time after giving birth, after leaving the hospital. But I made the call, didn't know what to expect, right? I figured that I was going to end up in jail, like jail type setting, when to wake up, when to go to sleep, what to eat, and all the rest of that there. And I ended up getting a bed and going in, and there was a woman who ended up being a blessing to me, right? She took my son and told me, like, hey, get yourself together. Don't worry about him. I got him. And to this day, like, her word has not failed.
Wow.
As she stood up, and she has stepped up, her and her husband, her entire family. So not only was I able to get me together, but I was able to get a whole additional family out of finding my way into recovery.
Wow. So when we talk about, you said you got high one last time, did you go into treatment immediately, or did you go to treatment at all?
So everything with the system is a process, right? So I had to do an intake. After doing the intake, I needed to make a phone call every day, right? And that call every day was just to see if they had a bed available for me. So it was kind of just rolling the dice. And whenever they said, yes, you had a bed available, then I was able to go, So me getting high that last time, in the midst of all of that, was in the midst, that was maybe 2 weeks.
Okay. Wow.
And then at one point, it was kind of me, like, I'm tired of this, like, forget it, because I was cold turkey in it. Really.
Right. Did you have any withdrawals, issues with withdrawals?
Gratefully, no.
Really?
Not that I really know. Crack cocaine doesn't really have major withdrawals. There are some health issues that usually show up after the fact for some individuals. Again, thank God I was not one of those individuals. There are some temperamental issues that show up. You know, you kind of get in the routine of, it's really an animalistic lifestyle that we begin to live, that I began to live, you know? So it was like, I'm finna get you before you get me. Like, all of those thought patterns and behaviors have to be changed and have to be shifted. Like, if I had to go along any type of withdrawals, it would be the behavior aspect, not physically.
Wow. Repairing what was broken. I know sometimes, well, let me ask you this before I get into that question. How many years were you addicted?
I think total equivalent of about 13.
13 years.
Mhm.
So for 13 years, there was a lot of breakdowns for you. And there's some collateral damage that goes on the back end. How was that now going into your sobriety? How was that repairing? Was it difficult to repair everything that was broken in regards to your family? The trust, building that trust, everything that was torn down over the years. How was that, just for potential viewers or family members who may be watching on the back end? It's a process. So how was that for you?
For me, I am blessed to say that I have always had the support of my family.
Wow. Amazing.
So they have never looked down on me. They have never shunned me. They've never dismissed me. They have always been encouraging and loving and supportive in me getting better. The hardest relationship to rebuild was with myself.
Let's talk about that.
Mhm.
Let's talk about that, because I think that is one of the hardest relationships, is for anyone to really forgive themselves and to be able to move past it, and to not be held hostage to a situation that they've been freed from.
Right.
So let's talk about that for someone a viewer who may be still struggling with that component. What advice would you give them?
One, everybody's process is different.
Correct.
Okay, let me say that. I was told to put the bat down and pick up a feather. Right? Just that.
Okay.
Stop beating up yourself. Stop beating. And I had to learn that. It took some time for me to actually learn that, because the if I coulda, shoulda show up. I knew better. But if I knew better, I would have been doing better. I didn't know better. The disease of addiction don't care what I know. It don't care who I know. It don't care how smart I am. It didn't care. So when it came down to it, like, I just had to take a step back and literally go back to like some basic stuff. Take the suggestions and realize that I didn't know everything. Depend on some people who had already walked this way of life and try to get those individuals to communicate with me and to guide me and show me how it worked for them. So like my process included a fellowship that showed me how to live a new way of life, right? My process included a 12-step program, and that's a part of my process that helped me to get to know me, get in touch with me, identify some of the things that I've done, be able to overcome some of those things that I've done, like to forgive myself for that, understanding that I am not my disease.
Right. Right. If there's someone who's watching this who still may be struggling with an addiction, what advice would you give them?
One, admit they have a problem.
Okay.
That's going to be first of all. And then secondly, if you are struggling with addiction, that you are not alone. There's somebody that's been through it and that can help you get through it. The hardest part is asking for the help, but as soon as you do, the help is there for you.
What advice would you give a loved one? Because I know sometimes codependency behavior doesn't help someone with their addictions. And sometimes my nephew is addicted to heroin. And there's a family member that feels that her love can save him. So what advice would you give a family member who love this person, or this individual, but what advice would you give them in a situation like this?
Let them have their process. Love is not enough, unfortunately.
It's not.
Unfortunately, like this is it. I don't know if a family member believes in the power of prayer. Allow God to go where we can't. We can't go into dark holes. We're not going in the alleys. We're not protecting them from the bullets. And then there's help, right? There's support groups for the family members as well, that they can talk to other people and see what they've done in order to get past it. But you taking your hands off of someone in active addiction is not loving them.
Correct.
But allowing them to have their process. Just make sure that they know when they are ready. You are there to love them,
right?
Not judgmentally.
What is Keisha up to now?
Girl, Keisha is thriving.
Let's talk about this thriving. Let's talk about it.
As I said earlier, there's a difference between living and existing. And I also understand that there's a difference between living and thriving, right? I am passionate about seeing people thrive, right? That's to get past those dark moments and be able to find that light that a lot of us end up searching for in life, right? One thing that I've realized is a lot of people look for it in the clothes and in relationships and in whatever's in the world. But I was able to find that light by looking in the mirror when I finally started looking at me, right? So I am about 2 semesters away from graduating with my AA and AS. I am pursuing social work with human services addiction studies with a pathway to social work, and we'll be moving on to either Barry or FIU. I am fully involved in my son's life. Like, I am working in my field. I'm a caseworker where I assist women in a transitional living environment in order to get to their next phase of life. So God has already blessed me to be in a position to start the process of being able to give back.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. I mean, just the enthusiasm in your voice, just by saying that. I love it. So once you cross over that threshold, do you have any personal goals that you want to do? Do you want to start a business, in that arena? Like, what's your goals? What you want to do to give back to those?
That will definitely be the plan. Exactly what element of that, I'm not quite sure yet. I do know that one of the what's needed is the assistance for women with children. Being a female that had a 3-week-old baby when I walked into treatment, I do know that there's a breakdown in the system when it came to me getting out of treatment and being able to find a stable and safe environment for him and I to be able to transition into. Like, they wanted to put me in the hack. I was not fit to do that with a 3-week-old baby. That was not going to happen. Yeah. Wow. So that's definitely where my eye is targeting. However, I do feel like it's important for us to grab hold of our youth, right? Right now, our youth need to know that somebody still cares. They need to know that they are not alone. They're out here with these mollies and these experimental drugs, and the addiction is becoming active in them a whole lot earlier. And hopefully I will be able to be on a platform that will be able to guide and say, hey, show them that mugshot. I done did it for you. You ain't got to do it.
Right. So I don't want to hold you too long. Finish this sentence, right? So after everything that Keisha has endured, she was strung out for 13 years, losing her children, having this baby while in the midst of trying to find herself. Then you become clean, the whole transition, and now you are so many years clean. Finish this sentence. My name is Keisha Hart, and I
am not my disease.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. You are looking at a walking miracle, guys. Like, I can't tell you how many people of my own family, who is still struggling, who is still struggling. You know, my nephew, I think one of my very first jobs, I think I was like 19, 20, was at a drug intake facility where people were court ordered to go into treatment. They will come here, get their intake before they are sent to their locations. And I think a negative narrative that is associated with people who are on drugs or whatever the case may be, that drugs starts in certain communities. Okay.
Mhm.
Or sometimes some people have to be acclimated to a certain lifestyle in order to be on drugs. And that was so far from the truth. I can't tell you how many professionals, okay, that I've encountered. I'm talking about from doctors who've had their own practices that was addicted to heroin. Nurses are addicted to the drugs that they are administered. You know, anesthesiologist is addicted. There was one I came across that was an EMT. He was a functional addict, and how he dealt with the trauma of his job was cocaine. You get what I'm saying? There was one lady, she just looking on the surface, I mean, she was down in her addiction, but she had a PhD. Okay. She was very well educated. I just think life happens to us all, and there's a negative narrative. My nephew grew up in a Christian home that was very sheltered, went to private school, and started using. He was never exposed to any type of atmosphere of drugs whatsoever, very sheltered. But he told me he went to a Christian school in Miami, and that's how he started using. So they were
Mhm.
teenagers in school, you
Right.
know. And of course, most Christian schools, you have kids that are families that are well off, and they were exposed and had the money to supply their habits. And for him, it just kind of spiraled out of control. So there is really a negative narrative associated to drugs. Drugs don't discriminate, baby.
Mm-mm.
Any walk of life, don't matter where you come from, nobody is exempt. Nobody is exempt. Wow. So I I thank you, Keisha, for coming on telling your story, because there's a lot of people who's not comfortable going back through that space. And you've always, that's one thing that I admired, that you've always been very honest and transparent with yourself and other people about where you come from. You know, and you're definitely that demonstration to show people like, hey, I'm not just talking about something I seen on TV. I lived it.
Mhm.
I lived it. I've overcome it. So I really appreciate you, girl. I really do. I really do. Is there anything that you would like to share before we sign out to anybody? Anything you want to just get off your heart?
You know,
Anything. You
I,
have the floor.
you, Lori, I just thank you for the opportunity. You know, I do pride myself in my transparency. And I think I've shared that with you before as well. You know, I hate to believe that everything that I've experienced in life, that I put myself through out there in the midst of active addiction, was just for me to keep hostage. You know, I plan on using what I've went through in order to help someone else, you know, to encourage someone else. Because like you say, life happens to us all. It doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your background. If the right elements are put into play, you're gonna end up in a hole, and you're gonna wonder how you're gonna get out of it, you know. So I'm interested and looking forward to the rest of your series of addiction and recovery, because addiction runs across the board for so many things, and it's not just drugs, you know. So I am looking forward to the rest of your series on this. Thank you,
So
Lori.
just You're welcome. And just a sneak peek, my next episode is going to be addiction and recovery, and it's going to be sex. And I have a young man. Oh my God, I've been knowing him for, oh my God, maybe over, oh, my son is going to be 19. I think I've been knowing him almost 20 years.
Oh wow.
And he's going to discuss him being addicted to sex. And I think that is another one that is kind of taboo, because when we
Mhm.
talk about addiction, we talk about just the drugs and alcohol component. But
Right.
yes, people can be addicted to sex.
Yes.
I am, so that's going to be the next episode. I'm still trying to find an individual who's comfortable talking about the alcohol component, because I had an uncle who succumbed to his addiction. He would have been a perfect candidate, but he's no longer here. But I've seen what addiction can do to people and how it has a lot of people in a stronghold. So I'm really looking forward to this, man. Some real conversations, real people, and this is what this podcast is going to be about, real topics. So thank you so much, Keisha.
Thank you.
For taking time out of your Sunday to discuss your journey. Go ahead and take care of that fur baby. We're going to sign out for now. I'm going to leave you guys with a pulsating thought of the week. So my pulsating thought of the week, go with the current. You'll be surprised as to where you're laying your feet. So until then, please make sure you make sure you subscribe and follow this platform. Keisha, if someone wants to reach out to you, how could they reach out to you if they have questions?
Oh Lord, no, I'm just saying. I'm going to say call you. Reach out to you. Yes, email.
Social media,
It's my first name spelled Keisha, middle initial L, last name HART80@gmail.com.
Awesome. So if you guys had any questions, if you wanted to, you feel free to reach out to her if you have any questions. In the meantime, in between time, we are going to sign out for now. Thank you so much. And you guys have a blessed day.